I would now like to introduce today's presenters. Bharat M. is a vice president in Everest Group's global sourcing practice. He leads Everest Group's global business services charter for healthcare and life sciences, retail and consumer packaged goods, and professional services verticals. Piyush Dubey is a practice director on Everest Group's global sourcing team. In this role, he manages multiple engagements with enterprise and buyer clients in the areas of location optimization, shared services, GBS benchmarking, peer intelligence, and talent strategy. Meghna Thomas is a senior analyst with Everest Group's global sourcing practice. In his role, she supports clients on shoring and sourcing optimization within the GBS model, work placement strategy, talent strategy, and GBS evolution themes. And with that, I would like to turn things over to Bharat.
Great. Thank you so much, Rafael. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's exciting to be today as part of this webinar and discuss all things GBS. In terms of what we have for the discussion, right? We'll do a bit of a flashback on what we've seen in 2023, a quick recap of things that were prominent. And then we'll also get into some of the prominent trends that we see shaping for GBS in 2024. And towards the end, also have some time for Q&A, right? I had the opportunity to do a similar webinar in February 2023. And back then we had a similar slide with some persistent themes from 2022 as well. The themes that came up in 2022 were a bit more anchored on talent. That was a year where we saw the great resignation or the great hiring, however we call it. But when we compare that with 2023, right, there has been some changes, a lot more focus on cost optimization, productivity improvements, of course, Gen AI as well. Piyush, I know you've been looking at some of these themes as well. What are you hearing from market? What did you hear in 2023?
Thanks, Bharat. A very good morning, afternoon, and evening to all. Yes, we have seen a lot of curiosity among GBS firms on how Gen AI can be leveraged to drive efficiencies across processes that are delivering from their centers. Many are focused on identifying and developing use cases to integrate Gen AI within their operations. Further, if you look at and move beyond Gen AI, there was another trend that basically shaped in 2023, and which was that enterprises prefer retaining core and strategic operations in-house, an opportunity that GBS firms proactively pursued across the year. Meghna, I know you have been tracking GBS trends for a large period of last year. What are your observations?
Yes, Piyush. Good morning, good evening, everyone. To talk about 2023, right? Cautious optimism was definitely there in 2023. Pragmatic digital investments to improve processes. And as rightly said by Piyush, insourcing was another theme as well. This could also be due to, lower satisfaction with vendors or their need to bring in some data sensitive roles in-house. So yes, Bharat, these are some of the big themes that we saw last year.
Right, got it. In fact, some of you may be aware, right? We did a study, the key issue study in late 2023 on the view for 2024 from enterprises. We got over 250 responses from firms. It's kind of an overwhelming view that companies are mostly optimistic about what's in store for 2024. With that, we have a poll upcoming for everyone. How do you see the market trends essentially impacting your GBS? Do you see scope for expansion, not much impact, or do you see significant pressures potentially slowing down demand? Okay, we are seeing the responses come through. Piyush, last time when we did a similar poll, again the sentiment was more towards greater role for the GBS. We're probably seeing a similar trend now as these numbers are starting to come in. What do you make of this?
No, absolutely, Bharat. Based on our discussion with GBS leaders last year, the overall sentiment towards GBS growth remains optimistic, and I expect the poll results to tell the same story, which we see is the case.
All right, maybe we give another 10 seconds and then can share the results as well, right? Okay. So yeah, the poll also suggests similar view. We've got about 70 odd responses, and 2/3 of them clearly looking at greater opportunity for GBS to expand role. We also look at something similar. We are seeing that happening as well in the market, right? Now moving on to the trend shaping 2024, right? For today's conversation, we have five convictions and five provocations. Convictions are essentially foundational beliefs. These are themes, trends that are already happening in the market. Provocations are essentially value creation ideas, and we've used similar format in the past. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this as well, right? Meghna, why don't you kick us off with the first theme?
Absolutely, Bharat. So yes, the first conviction of the session is sentiments towards in-house are increasing. We have been seeing a lot of news articles in the recent months about increasing GCC setups, right? And at the same time, we are also seeing that existing ones are scaling up as well. But I think we should be looking at this statement more objectively. In a study that we had conducted recently, the one which Bharat had mentioned earlier, we could see a pivot towards in-house to increase further in 2024. While there is a shift towards in-house, we shouldn't ignore the fact that a good healthy chunk still believes that they would continue to use the vendors. I feel this pivot underscores the importance of viewing the choice between in-house operations and vendor partnerships as a non-binary decision. Having said that, for any organization, decision should not be in-house or vendors. It should rather be in-house and vendors. Here, we should understand what each model essentially offers and assess how it aligns with the overall organization strategy, right? To understand this better, we should look at what different value propositions are offered by each model. Now, when it comes to doing things in-house, there are some pretty sweet benefits. First off, it tends to boost your employer brand perception. People tend to look at the brand they're often working for. Plus, while you're dealing with sensitive data or high-risk tasks, having everything under your own roof gives you a lot more control and definitely peace of mind as well. And let's not forget about the integration part, right? It's much easier to align your in-house team with the overall goals and culture of the organization. And I'm sure you must be resonating with these points, especially when you have been trying to expand your in-house model in the recent years. Now imagine collaborating with vendors who have got some pretty good tricks up their sleeves as well, right? For starters, they are more cost effective, especially for non-strategic tasks. You can outsource those routine roles to vendors who specialize in them, freeing up your in-house team to focus on stuff that really moves the needle. And when it comes to scalability, we all know vendors have the flexibility to scale up and down as needed without you really having to, take the headache of hiring and training new resources and employees, right? Having said that, as it matures, right, the in-house model should work along with vendors to drive positive business outcomes. Thus, you can have the best of both worlds. Let's take a moment to step back and examine the evolution of in-house model, right? Initially, it's all about navigating between cost efficiency and expanding the range of services. Sometimes even finding yourself in a friendly rivalry with the vendor. But as time goes on, something shifts. There is a realization that there is more to gain from this collaboration than mere competition. The focus pivots simply from outdoing each other to working hand in hand, leveraging each other's strengths to drive collective success. Ultimately, in-house model becomes this orchestrators of service delivery. It evolves into this conductor of symphony of services, seamlessly orchestrating every aspect of delivery. Ultimately, there is full ownership, not just of the in-house own operations, right, but of the entire ecosystem of vendors as well, ensuring everything is in harmony. In short, getting the best of both worlds. I think so far we have spoken a lot about in-house and vendors working hand in hand, right? This brings us to a very crucial question. While all this is happening, What are enterprises doing for GBS to create a better business impact? Bharat, based on your experience, how do you see this panning out?
Thanks, Meghna. Thanks for underscoring the importance of both the models, right? Both the in-house and the third party. Moving on, right? The second conviction we have for discussion is around how enterprises are more proactively exploring avenues to maximize GBS impact. Again, to be clear, we're not saying enterprises weren't doing this earlier, but it is a bit more pronounced at this stage than what we perhaps saw earlier. In the last few months, the number of inquiries that we as a firm have received from enterprises on what are the newer areas or how better they can take advantage of their GPS, it's been much more than what we've seen in the past. But having said that, right, this change is not going to be easy. We're probably looking at change in mindset, change in philosophy of how you use a GPS, and it may even require revisiting the way enterprises define work in itself, right? So what do we actually mean by that? If we look at how the GBS model and how enterprises' perception around the model itself has evolved over time, right? For a long time, it started as, hey, let's establish the model with lifting and shifting some roles, kind of throw the work over the model, send something into GBS, get it back with certain level of value add and so on. That has fairly been the initial part of how this works. Now it's slowly shifting to a place where enterprises are looking at, hey, how can I maybe redefine aspects of work so that I can take more advantage of the model? For example, we worked with a CPG organization where we looked at some of their finance and accounting processes and challenged the ways in which some of those processes were structured, what necessarily was thought has need for residing within business. It emerged that there are parts of even those activities which could potentially be moved into a GBS if it meant redefining how it happened even in the business. And that's what the organization did. And they are looking at taking greater advantage or looking at moving more work into GBS and also freeing up businesses to focus on more core activities in itself, right? That's something that we are seeing. And potentially, as we look at how this moves forward, your GBS is perhaps just an extension, right? I know we've spoken about this in the past as well, borderless models and blurring the boundaries. But we've seen a lot of that from what GBS can do. What we are seeing now is more proactive role, more pronounced role from enterprises to see how they can make that happen. We are seeing some firms even revisit their operating models, realigning certain teams to ensure greater presence of maybe even process owners or experts from the GBS who can have greater accountability, shared goals, greater ownership of outcomes, and so on, right? In this pursuit, right, some of the key initiatives that we are seeing enterprises undertake, right, and we've classified them kind of in three buckets: talent, work placement, and operating model. On the talent side, we are seeing more focus from enterprises to drive homogenized employee experience. It could mean similar career pathing or similar sort of facilities, even same offices for your in-house center in, let's say, India or Philippines, and similar look and feel, having that back in the US or UK. On the work placement, again, more and more clarity on what each location or each center or each entity is going to support, having a clear sign on the door. Maybe even looking at how do you ensure consistency in job descriptions, skill sets across different entities. And lastly, again, on operating model, right? Not just strengthening governance or redefining structures, but even investing in additional roles, additional enabling capabilities such as change management, portfolio management, and so on and so forth. Piyush, I know you've also been looking at some of these roles and you've been supporting clients in helping them think through some of these roles as well. What's your take on this?
No, absolutely, Bharat. These type of niche and non-traditional capabilities bring the GBS a lot closer to the enterprise and add significant value in the process. In fact, we are witnessing more and more mature GBS firms going beyond the traditional delivery construct and supporting enterprise through new age digital and non-traditional capabilities. Now, to understand this better, let's first look at our 5-stage GBS maturity framework, or the way we call it, the 5 GBS personas. I will not be going into the details of this framework, as many of you already know about it from our past interactions. But for quick context, the maturity level of each GBS persona increases as we move from the persona on your left-hand side to the persona on your right-hand side. Looking at the first 3 personas out of these 5, we see that the GBS is adding value primarily via cost arbitrage and efficiency enablement, and has limited to no influence on business outcomes of the enterprise. However, GBS firms at a more mature stage, which is the transformer, the integrator stage, go beyond process and domain expertise and aim to create direct impact on enterprise growth. Such GBS organizations work closely with the enterprise, develop strong business acumen, focus on value delivery via innovation and development of niche capabilities. However, this transition is easier said than done, with many GBS organizations finding it difficult to attain the right balance between service delivery, running the GBS, and changing the GBS. While efficient service delivery has been table stakes for a long time now, mature GBS organizations have focused on how they can better run their operations to make it more efficient and streamlined. This has resulted in the GBS developing a continuous improvement mindset, having a robust GBS level governance, and build strong capabilities on managing transitions. But in the past few years, these same mature organizations are aiming to attain an accelerated value delivery by blurring the boundaries with the enterprise. What this means is that such organizations are working closely with the enterprise and understanding how the GBS model needs to change to create a direct impact on the enterprise business and end customers. And to attain this goal, many such firms are strategically upgrading their existing capabilities and adding new skill sets which directly gel with the overall strategic priorities of the enterprise. Now, these GBS organizations are increasingly building niche digital skills such as analytics, AI, ML, automation, along with capabilities on the non-traditional service delivery aspects such as ESG, vendor management, and consulting. And in a way, they are better supporting the enterprise goals in while doing so. Some of these capabilities like change management, analytics, automation cut across multiple business units of the enterprise and further widen the horizon of impact delivery created by the GBS. Also, supporting enterprise across non-traditional areas allows the enterprise to fast-track its goal attainment on core strategic aspects, something that Bharat touched upon in the previous conviction provocation that we had in place. Obviously, as you can see, the uptake of these capabilities varies from GBS to GBS, but this is a trend that is picking up as we speak. And that now brings us to the next poll question that we have. The question here is, how do you see the capabilities evolving in your GBS in the next 6 to 12 months? When I say capabilities, these new digital niche, non-traditional capability sets. The options that you have are pretty straightforward. You anticipate no change happening on this aspect. You basically envision that you are going to set up these capabilities, or basically you are going to even expand the existing capabilities if those are already in place. Bharat, I know you had been part of multiple such conversations with various GBS leaders in recent times. What is your take on this?
Yeah, see, these enabling capabilities, Piyush, as you rightly mentioned, will soon become make it happen roles, make it happen capabilities. These are perhaps going to become, very critical. And we are seeing firms actually invest in these, right? And they're even creating structures and, right positioning in place to drive it. In fact, I can see the poll results. We've got about 75 odd responses, and again, quite a few of our responses are indicating that they're looking to expand these capabilities, kind of also indicating that potentially we have firms that have already started building these capabilities as well. So that's good to see. Another 1/4 of the responses indicate that they're looking to set up these capabilities and look to capture value through these as well. It's great. It's interesting to see, right? Having said that, these capabilities are important, but we also need to keep in mind that These are sort of longer term investments, and we can't just have these capabilities for the sake of it, right? Having that strong business case, collaboration with enterprise, and the right operating model is going to be far more important while using these capabilities, right? In fact, the way we see it, certain critical success factors for these are one, we need to recognize, as I said, these are longer term investments. These are not, quick fixes, what you typically see in certain delivery areas, moving certain part of process and it gets delivered, or you're able to reduce certain turnaround time sort of metrics. These are not those sort of goals to start with. Secondly, these can be anywhere within the GBS. These need not be tied into a headquarter location or a particular location per se. But more important is what is the mandate and what is the visibility that this group, these capabilities have within the GBS and with the global enterprise as well. Which leads us to the third point around need for having the right governance. These capabilities should have, as I said, the visibility and ability to collaborate closely with businesses. These are essentially capabilities that's going to help change the GBS, blur the boundaries, get it closer to enterprise and to the customers. And that's not going to happen if these capabilities are seen as remote setups within the GBS in itself. There has to be that collaboration with global groups as well. In some of the enterprises who have actually had success in this, we have seen even enterprise representation, right? It kind of goes to the previous previous theme that we were presenting. There are cases where enterprise leaders or enterprise strategy groups or other leaders from even talent or people organizations move into GBS on secondments to help set up and drive these groups, again, bridge some of the cultural gaps, accelerate some of these relationships, and look to drive closer collaboration and right. Lastly, the key point that we want to call out is keep it lean. These are again not meant to be large delivery sort of teams, right? You could potentially have a 5-10 member change management team in a GBS with managing more than 2,000, 3,000, or maybe even 5,000 odd resources. The focus here is how can these teams work with all businesses and functions and look to drive that collaboration and blur the boundaries. This may not necessarily be linked to scale. All right. With that, we also want to come to the special offer that we have for today's session for all of you. Do sign up. There will be a link that will pop up in the chat for you. Do sign up for a special offer to take our GBS evolution persona. This is the same persona that Piyush presented some time back, the 5 stages from the arbitrage service provider and so on. So this is the survey-based assessment, and pick a function at a time, and it's kind of a diagnostic assessment, function agnostic, and will help you determine where your function is on the 5-stage maturity. We are happy to do a readout for you on how we see that particular function of yours. The survey also tells you what are potential areas you can double click on to further accelerate and shift towards the right. Okay, so do click on the link and take up that survey. Okay. Before we move on to the next part of the webinar, I also wanted to quickly take a moment and call out regarding our upcoming in-person event. This is Everest Group Engage. It's an in-person event happening in Dallas in late September, early October. This is going to be an exciting event, and we've got a lot of interesting themes and discussions planned. Do check out our website. I'm sure some of you are already attending, but do check out the website for more details. Okay, moving on, right? We started the discussion around, growth in in-house, importance of in-house and the third party, the collaboration. We saw what enterprises are doing to further take advantage of the model. We also looked at how GBS organizations are investing in some of these enabling capabilities to further move closer to business, closer to customers. One of the often overlooked areas is around talent in itself. We are seeing a fair bit of change and in how talent as an organization is playing in this whole process. and wanted to also share some of our thoughts on this space. Meghna, what do you see here?
Absolutely, Bharat. Can't agree more, right? Talent is definitely taking the center stage. And to actually understand this better, I think we should look at the challenges in talent management. In our recent cases study that we had mentioned earlier about, we had asked over 200 leaders to identify the key challenges in talent lifecycle management. I think this is something most of you will be able to resonate with. Finding the right skill is like searching for that, perfect puzzle that fits just right into your team. GBS organizations will have to find those hidden gems who can bring their A game to the table and make the whole magic happen. Attracting top talent with niche and next gen skills. Think of this as your own talent treasure hunt. You are looking for the cream of the crop who can bring those in demand skills to the table, right? And going into 2024, you have to stay one step ahead of the game by figuring out which skills are going to be hot in demand down the line. When it comes to upskilling, no more one off initiatives or scattered efforts. It's all about creating this seamless, cohesive approach that ensures every member of your team has the opportunity to grow and move up the ladder, no matter what, where they're starting from. Like mentioned earlier, right? This is not a mere incremental enhancement to talent. This just won't cut it. There has to be some sort of a step change in how HR and the people organization operates in itself. There has to be a programmatic approach towards this. Maybe even redefine how people organization is and delivering things, right? To put this into perspective, for far too long, HR organizations have been providing strong execution support. We have seen HR organizations having touch points with every employee. But today, this is slowly and definitely changing. HR is more of a strategic enabler rather than an execution partner. HR is definitely taking up more roles. And today, HR organizations are enabling businesses to have right resources and better connectivity. The in-house team is collaborating with third-party vendors as well. They are having better connectivity with global counterparts. In fact, they are even trying to create those business and soft skills that are required in leaders to drive more impactful business outcomes. I think so far we have seen how people organization is redefining itself. We have also seen roles from non-traditional areas coming up, such as change management, transformation, ESG, etc. To extend this further, one of the other pressing areas that we have been seeing recently is ownership and leadership in GBS. Piyush, what's your view on this one?
Hey, thanks, Meghna. Yes, the role of people organization is absolutely central to the GBS evolution. And it becomes even more prominent if the GBS wants to develop itself not just a talent hub, but into a global leadership hub. Which now brings us to the next conviction, wherein the key observation over the last 1 year at least that we have seen is that a lot of GBS organizations have now been able to house global functional leadership roles within their existing setup. And this was something that we saw is going to happen, but it will be accelerated to this extent is something which has largely shocked the community. But given the kind of maturity curve, given majority of the GBS organizations are growing in their maturity curve, are becoming more strategic enablers, this was something that was evident to happen. Now, this also provides us a very good segue into understanding what actually ownership means at GBS, right? Although there are multiple ways to interpret what ownership would mean in a GBS context, we at Everest Group have defined it as a 4-stage progression. The first stage is where the GBS is only leveraged for delivery of services. It is, again, if you go back to the overall 5-stage GBS persona assessment, it lies somewhere between the cost, the arbitrager and the service provider stage, the first 2 stages. The enterprise, in this case, owns the entire process, which is being delivered by the GBS and basically calls the shots. The second stage, or the next part of this overall 4-stage process, is the GBS builds strong capabilities on one or more processes or skill sets, which typically do not reside anywhere else in the enterprise. This way, the GBS presents itself as a true center of excellence and commands complete ownership of that particular process. The third stage is where the GBS emerges as a talent and capability hub for multiple processes within a particular function and creates a strong business case to house global functional leadership. This is exactly the thing that we have seen happening across multiple mature organizations in the recent past. And we expect more and more GBS organizations to reach this level of ownership and develop more functional leadership. However, the GBS attains the pinnacle of ownership when it becomes a global leadership hub, not only at a functional level, but also at a business and product level. And as we can see at the very last stage of this ownership, not a lot of GBS organizations in the current world have been able to attain that last stage of ownership, which I believe in true sense is the key to unlock exponential value delivery from a GBS. Now, let's also look at what are the key factors or criterias that a GBS has to meet to basically even be qualified to house a global ownership role. So these can include certain GBS specific attributes, such as GBS tenure. We have seen very limited instances wherein a new GBS setup is housing a global role within its organization. Similarly, a higher function area penetration is also preferred because what we have seen again is that the organizations for specific processes, for specific product teams, which have more than 60 to 70% of penetration within the GBS, are better placed or have the better odds of housing these global roles. It can also be the extent of integration with the business units that the GBS has. How frequently are your teams interacting and collaborating with the GBS leaders sitting onshore and helping them devise solutions for the challenges that they're facing? So the integration level with the enterprise is also a key criteria that plays a vital role in deciding whether the GBS is qualified enough to house a global leadership role or not. Beyond GBS specific attributes, there are some GBS leadership, the leadership cohort within GBS is also basically assessed on multiple parameters for this kind of a role or ownership. The overall tenure of the GBS leader is also a key criteria. We have seen that a lot of GBS leaders have started their overall journey with the GBS when it was just a cost arbitrager, right? And have seen that transition of the GBS from being an arbitrager to, in some cases, become a transformer. So what kind of experience have they got in that transformation? What role did they play in that GBS transformation is also a key metric, basically, if you want to look at it. Does the GBS leader also has any kind of strong domain and business acumen is also key. Leaders who basically are collaborating more with the enterprise leadership and running some transformation initiatives or building some or helping the enterprise build some new products, helping them expand the services across different geographies are definitely the people who will be shortlisted for this kind of role. Has the person led global transformation initiatives and collaborated with enterprise leaders? Again, something that we touched upon is critical on the leadership capabilities that are presently within the GBS. Some of these criteria can also be external in nature. I mean, the events that we cannot control. The pandemic happened, a lot of it, which brought in a lot of leadership changes across different geographies and organizations across GBS and within the enterprise as well. Can be a major factor leading to a global role coming to the GBS. Attrition backfill, another common reason why a lot of enterprise leaders will look at the GBS, given they have become capability hubs on most of the aspects, to have a backfill on a global leadership role. It can also be a play around that the leadership talent that the enterprise is seeking is not available, or the time to hire is really, really high. In that case, if there is a right leader available within the GPS construct, that becomes a choice for the enterprise. In fact, mature GBS organizations meet most of these criteria at a functional level, resulting in more functional leadership being housed in the organizations. However,
yeah, hey, and Piyush, no, I just want to add a couple of points here, right? I mean, it's often we do get questions around, hey, what is the mantra or what is the critical element to getting some of these roles? How do we, build some of these capabilities per se? Sometimes it's about conscious focus. Today we know of several GBS organizations that are building very well defined leadership development program, managerial development programs. We are seeing GBS organizations that are launching programs specifically for first line managers on areas beyond process expertise. And as Piyush said, right, sometimes even external events such as pandemic has helped push the boundaries. We know an organization that was looking at a global leader in the UK. This was around certain critical data management sort of areas. It so happened, the leadership profile, the candidate was from India, and because of the pandemic, was hired locally in the India in-house center. And it so happened that the role was managed so seamlessly, and they continue doing that. The leader travels to UK and some of their other delivery centers once a quarter. But the blurring of boundaries and the necessary the need per se to have a role in close proximity to business when you talk about global leadership, that is also starting to sort of reduce, right? The other element which we also want to very consciously call out is global ownership and leadership does not necessarily mean loss of control or challenges at an enterprise level. It's again a sign of the accountability, the responsibility, and the outcomes that can potentially be driven from offshore or even other nearshore locations as well. Right, we have seen instances of in-house center leaders eventually becoming CIOs and CXOs in some organizations as well. It's not completely new. But again, the focus here is to say how, as an enterprise, can take advantage of the GBS model to help accelerate their leadership requirements as well. Yeah, Piyush, I thought I'll just chip in with that. Back to you.
Hey, thanks, Bharat. No, absolutely. I mean, the kind of role a people organization is playing through their L&D programs for the leadership development is absolutely critical, and that is something that we are going to touch upon as we move ahead. The key aspect that a lot of GBS organizations who are currently only focusing on global leadership, functional level leadership development have to notice is that functional leadership roles are limited. Hence, GBS should proactively focus on building strong business and tech-savvy leadership. And this is where I was basically going back to the point that Meghna had also mentioned that, yes, people organization needs to ensure and take lead on this aspect, that how the GBS is able to develop strong business and technology and product owners within their existing leadership cohort. And this is something which will become important and will play an important role in blurring the boundaries between the GBS and the enterprise. However, once again, it is easier said than done. It is actually a very difficult task, as most of the GBS leaders today had started their professional journey when the GBS model was looked more as a cost savings enabler and an efficiency driver. What this kind of a GBS mindset, it kind of changed the mindset of the leadership when during their growing years. And a lot of the tenured GBS stakeholders, although they have attained strong strong process and functional expertise, they have limited view into how the business is being run and how to be a people leader in the process. Hence, more intentional efforts are required to change their existing leadership mindset from being more cost and process centric to becoming more people and business centric. In fact, the most neglected aspect to this leadership transition is developing strong people attributes. A common theme that we came across in a lot of our conversations was that a global leader, when a GBS becomes a global talent hub and wants a leader at a global level, the global leader has to basically has some people attributes such as empathy. How do you empathize with the challenges that your teams are facing? How you are able to motivate people to deliver better? And how are you empowering the right talent with the right skills and tools to get the best out of them? This brings us again to the point highlighted by Meghna that people organizations need to act as enablers to bring this change. Existing leadership development programs need to undergo a transition and need to be more holistic. When I say holistic, they should be more people, process, and business centric to develop a great pipeline of global potential global leaders within the GBS. Bharat, I know you have addressed many HR leaders on this topic. How important are these people-centric and business-centric attributes in developing more global roles within the GBS?
Fairly important, right? No doubt about. Cannot underscore the importance of these roles, right? And in some ways, right, all of this ties back together as we look at blurring those boundaries, getting to this borderless view. It's just a natural extension. Enterprises taking that next step and not just necessarily GBSs, pushing from their side, right? For instance, we know of a life sciences organization. They have an in-house center in India, and they have a sort of a policy sort of framework where a fair bit of resources are always on secondment to the global headquarters, right? And it's part of their talent model. And these are meant to be 18 to 36 months sort of a secondment. And when those resources come back to the in-house center, they bring a particular process or they bring certain outcome-centric work alongside with them, right? So there are different shapes and forms, again, this takes, but the underlying guiding principles and elements hold good, right? Stronger connect with business, ability to have that empathy, being able to communicate well, having that high degree of ownership, the mindset to build people organizations around. Some of these will continue to be critical elements as we look at the whole leadership ownership aspect evolving, right? With that, we kind of again come to the end of the points that we had. It's a good segue to also take up some of the questions that we've received. One of the questions that we received is how are service providers, outsourcing firms assisting enterprises or GBS to move up the maturity scale? Maybe let me take a shot at it, and Piyush, Meghna, feel free to chip in, right? Very pertinent question, ties back to the first theme that we spoke about, right? This is not an reiterating, this is not an or equation, it's more of an and sort of a equation here. As we look at it, third-party service providers do bring in quite a few capabilities and attributes that are fairly ahead. For example, recently I was in a discussion where we had a service provider and the GBS in-house team together. And some of the Gen AI capabilities that they were bringing in, the use cases they were showing were pretty far ahead and fairly relevant. Right now, that's giving GBS organizations a lot of food for thought on how they can accelerate some of these journeys, take advantage of capabilities that are available versus necessarily having to build some of these in-house. So, the tech and new capabilities is definitely going to be a critical part of, how the third-party relationship, how the outsourcing organizations can help. Okay. Anything you would like to add, Piyush, Meghna, on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have observed that a lot of the GBS organizations are partnering more and more with the vendor landscape that they have in place, because a lot of these vendors, as Bharat rightly pointed out, they have scaled on some of the niche capabilities wherein the GBS is kind of lacking or is planning to build. We have seen that collaborations happening. A lot of the GBS organizations are learning from their suppliers and understanding how to basically build a specific capability. What are the nuances specific to that particular capability? How to build that? How to scale it, right? And what is the most important thing? How that capability is being applied in the ways of operations of the enterprise, right? That is absolutely critical, and that is one of the areas wherein it is the other way around, wherein the GBS is learning from their vendor friends.
And to even add on to it, right? Even for a lot of niche skills and next-gen skills that currently the in-house model, doesn't house roles or expertise in. For that too, they are like looking forward to service providers and supporting them, like either in the form of thought leadership or in form of assistance in like expanding or setting up teams. In various ways, they are definitely looking forward to form a partnership with service providers in this case as well. So yeah.
Actually, valid point, Meghna, because what we have also seen a lot of GBS organizations, while they are playing within a transformation initiative, they are playing the role of an orchestrator and allowing the service provider to come and bring in the expertise and basically let the overall transformation initiative run in a smooth manner. They are using their capabilities to ensure that the transformation goals that are set in place are being met, despite the fact that the GBS, maybe from a capability standpoint, is not that well prepared at this given moment. So the GBS in that case becomes more like an orchestrator, like you had basically described during in one of those provocations that we just discussed.
Right. Hey, moving on, we have a location question. Meghna, do you want to take this? The question is, which are the locations, GBS locations that are most prevalent? Where do we see a fair bit of activity?
Definitely, Bharat. So definitely some of the top locations, India remains the most popular GBS location, accounting for, I think, approximately 30% of the total sender setups, and maybe even also 50% of the GBS headcount in itself, right? Followed by, we do have Philippines and then Poland, then Ireland, and so on. And but another thing that we really need to notice is that there is also significant sender setups traction happening in tier 2, 3, 4 locations. Approximately around 30% of the new sender setups that we have seen in the last 1 to 2 years are actually in the tier 2, 3 locations. Yeah.
Got it. I think few underlying guiding principles, the way we see it also coming up is locations like India, Philippines, Poland, they are mature ones, but they will continue to be great sources of talent and support. We are seeing a fair bit of interest in nearshore, especially for US organizations looking at Latin American locations. But there is, again, to one of our earlier points, there's a very clear sign in the door approach that we're also seeing. So if it's a LATAM location, maybe it's for a specific, maybe and supporting a function like order to delivery for a CPG organization, which involves close connection with supply chain teams, other customers and so on. So how do you use advantage of a nearshore center, maybe an offshore location for something else? We are seeing third-party service providers being a bit more bullish around usage of tier 2, tier 3 locations. When it comes to in-house setups, it's still the usual suspects that we often see. Okay, moving on to the next one, right? And this is a very pertinent question: is around how will Gen AI impact? What is the role that GBS can play? Piyush, you touched on it a bit at the start. Do you want to talk about what you're hearing on Gen AI and GBS?
Yeah. So a lot of the GBS organizations, as I said, are very curious to integrate Gen AI within their operations and seek benefits from it. A lot of them are trying to build use cases which are more central to how do you basically use Gen AI to automate certain mundane tasks which are very time intensive and do not add much of the value. So that is one area wherein a lot of the GBS organizations are currently investing their efforts, identifying across multiple functions what are those processes which are easy to automate, which are very, what we can say, sequential in nature, which are very standardized, streamlined, straightforward in nature. And those are the processes that are being currently targeted as we speak. The next stage of this would be that a lot of the GBS leadership is also thinking that, okay, how can we also apply Gen AI within, say, certain cases wherein the overall value delivery coming from a cost angle and efficiency angle is further enhanced when they are basically running any kind of a transformation initiative. So those are the key aspects which I feel is happening currently. Everybody is at a nascent stage. Everybody's exploring, experimenting with Gen AI, and developing some good use cases that can be scaled in the future. But I do anticipate a lot of these organizations to come up with really scaled products or tools as well, if not in the coming year, but maybe in a couple of years or so, if the journey continues and the curiosity and investments that are happening continue at the same pace.
All right. Okay. Moving on, right. The next question that we have is around the role that GBS organizations are playing in areas like ESG, change management, workforce management, again, some of the enabling capabilities. Specifically on ESG, right? In fact, we recently published a report on that as well, on what are we really seeing firms do. The broader response that we had from the GBS market and the views indicate that a lot of aspiration on ground. There is still some more work that can be done, but today we see GBS organizations have the right foundation to help accelerate even enterprise-wide ESG compliance and ESG journey in itself. Right, so that is something that we are seeing shape up and grow.
And on that very topic, Bharat, so ESG is one of those capabilities wherein a lot of GBS leadership is currently focusing, because it has become more of a necessity for the enterprise to focus on. A lot of the enterprise across different verticals don't even look at ESG as a regulatory mandate or something that they have to do to support the society and environment. Yes, those are the key critical drivers behind having an ESG setup in place and focusing on it. But the key driver now, it has become that a lot of the enterprise leadership now thinks that if we are not able to predict what is going to happen on the climate front, we are going to incur a huge financial loss, right? What we have also seen, that ESG risk management, ESG risk monitoring, tracking, reporting is something that a lot of GBS organizations are currently helping their enterprise with. And in this journey, and in the and going ahead with the agenda to support the overall enterprise in the ESG agenda that they have. So in a view wherein they are expecting that ESG is going to become one of the key services that they're going to deliver in the coming couple of years, because of its multiple ways in which it actually impacts the overall enterprise. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think a lot of interesting questions that we have. Maybe we take up just one more, right? Just being mindful of the time as well. This one is around increase in in-house setups, especially in locations like India. We have seen a fair bit of increase in the last 12-18 months. How is the talent supply going to cope up with the demand, right? I mean, given many enterprises, especially for areas like tech, are going to end up looking out for the same talent, is there going to be a point where the talent leverage and cost is going to prove challenging for global organizations? In fact, this has been a fairly pertinent question for a while now. The way we see it, right, even the global sourcing, the in-house leverage has seen its own waves of evolution. In some ways, so to say, we even see the industry moving from that stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. At every stage, we are probably seeing this question come up with different shapes and forms. What we are seeing, though, especially in some of the established GBS in-house center locations such as India, is the talent also looking to move up the maturity curve, the value curve, to meet the demand. Yes, is there going to be a mismatch? Is there going to be a supply demand gap overall? Yes, I think that will continue to be there, especially for niche skills. But if something that past history tells us is, whenever there has been these increased demand need for it, the market also has found ways to, come up with and support. So, and especially for large locations like India, with fair bit of mobility happening from several other cities, tier 2, tier 3s, into tier 1, the augmentation of talent will only continue to increase. We are seeing a lot of industry associations, governments taking charge of accelerating the learning curve, newer courses coming into the educational curriculum, and so on, right? So some of these will further help. Maybe in the short term, there will be some challenges, but in the longer term, there will be enough talent for enterprises. And we truly believe, there is a lot more that can be tapped from all of these established locations as well. Right.
And
with that, yeah, sorry, go on, Piyush.
yeah, so just ending note on that particular point, a lot of the GBS organizations are also looking at automation as one of the ways to counter this kind of a demand surge. They have learned their lessons from the talent scramble that we had witnessed in 2022 and are focusing even more aggressively on how they can use automation to their advantage to manage the talent demand supply gap. So that is also going to play a critical role in how the GBS is able to face if there is any further surge in demand for certain skills.
All right. Okay. With that, we'll come to an end for the session. We have some closing content to cover as well, right? Want to call out the offer again. We shared this earlier in between the session. There is an offer for all of you to sign up for a GBS persona evaluation, persona assessment. This is again the same 5-stage framework. For a function, you can select and fill in a survey, and that the assessment will tell you where you land up in the 5 stages and what it would take you to shift right. Do take advantage of this offer and this opportunity, right? Moving forward again. So just wanted to call out about our upcoming event, Everest Group Engage. Do check out our website for more details, more insights about this particular event. We have an exciting set of themes lined up. Also, some closing comments. We have a fair bit of our published research in terms of blogs and viewpoints. Do take a moment to check out the related content that we have. It's been a pleasure discussing about GBS today, and we look forward to more sustained conversations on this topic.